The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Keep your mission on your mind and your mind on your mission. This is Mission Minded with Michael Coleman.
It is Mission Minded. Oh, we love this show because we keep our mind on our mission and our mission on our mind. He's Michael Coleman. He is the CEO of the Montgomery Area Food Bank. That's mafb.org if you'd like to help at any time. They cover 35 counties in the great state of Alabama, of course, formerly the Jimmy Hill Mission. Michael, Happy New Year to you, brother. What's been going on, man? Everything good?
Oh, man, just ready to start a new year refreshed, enjoy some time with family. Santa Claus was good to me.
Good. You're a good boy.
And I'm just ready to get back at it.
We've got some great email questions we get every single week. info@TonyCurryRadio.net. info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Again, wherever you get your podcast, we're on every major industry out there. So no matter where you listen, you can find Mission Minded with Michael Coleman on the Tony Kurre Radio Podcast Network. And of course, hear the show live at least 5 times a week on TKR. Download the TKR app on Apple or Tony Kurre Radio on Android. It's fantastic, and I think you'll love the classic rock in between all the great shows we got. We want to get into the strategic ways nonprofits can leverage data to optimize operations. Now, I got to tell you, as a regular Joe, when you threw this idea at me, it didn't sound like incredibly exciting conversation for 30 minutes. I'm just going to be straight with you, Michael. I was like, he better put some sexiness behind this topic, baby.
Well,
but I know you can do it, so I'm looking forward to getting into that.
It's a little bit like putting lipstick on a pig. I mean, you can only make it so attractive.
But I know if you brought it up, you've got a home run in your back pocket, so I'm looking forward to that. But I did have an interesting email question here from Trey from Knoxville that came down yesterday, as a matter of fact. He said, Dear Michael, by the way, he loves the show, I got a great idea to start a business that's actually adding something to an already existing business, but he has no background in this business. And I'm trying to paraphrase because it went for like 2 pages. And he has no clue how the business works. He just thinks this would be a wonderful addition to an already existing business, but doesn't know how to approach it. He's like, he goes, I know that if I, and he's like, I've talked to some people in my circle and it's a fantastic idea. And everyone's like, I can't believe someone, the idea, I can't believe someone hasn't thought of this already idea.
Right.
And he's like, if I go to one of these places and tell them this idea, I know they're going to steal it and I'm going to get nothing from it. So he's just been sitting on it for 6 months. Do you have any recommendations what this gentleman should do?
Yeah, I think I would, I think back to Seinfeld. I'm a big Seinfeld buff. And it was back when Kramer came up with all the ideas. And every time something new was invented, and he had the idea to create a cologne called the Ocean. Mm-hmm. And that smelled like the ocean. And sure enough, he spread the idea around, and Ralph Lauren laughed at him. But then turn around a year later, and they produced this cologne.
Yeah,
it smelled like that. And he's like, "Hey, that's my idea. They stole it." And we all know that's a real concern. I mean, if it really is, I don't know what the idea is, but there is that possibility of intellectual theft. And so there is a way that you can map that out and copyright that. Now, I would tell you that you need to get with people who are much more in tune with that, some attorney who can help you, or search the internet for how do you copyright ideas, business ideas, and get some of the specifics. But what I would do is I think you can get a lot of background if there's not people you can talk to you trust. I think you just need to do a lot of research, because I have personally fallen in love with ideas and just become convinced that, oh, I can do this, I can add it to this, and it won't be any problem. And then I fall in love with all the positives that I think it can do. I tie it into my other business. I mean, I've had these ideas, and I'm like, oh, that's a winner right there. That's going to win, until you start doing it. And then, then reality hits you. And not to say that it can't, not to say it won't be successful. But what I have found is it's just human nature. When I love an idea, and I am the world's worst at this, when I'm in love with an idea, I can tell you all the positives as if they're guaranteed to happen, and all the negatives that my wife speaks or my friends speak to me about an idea. I'm like, oh, that's probably not going to happen. And so there can be red flags everywhere, but the reality is I don't want to see those red flags. And so, and you got to be honest with yourself and subject your ideas to scrutiny wherever you feel like you can find that trusted source. And I try not to go to people with ideas that I think are just going to fall in love with them because they love me and they're going to support me. I think you really need to go against somebody who can really help you think it through, that's not in danger of taking the idea and running with it, but somebody who you just can speak truth into your life and is not afraid of telling you that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard, or at least walk you through the potential pitfalls. And that would be somebody you respect, somebody you value, but somebody who's not a yes person to you. And maybe a spouse, because my spouse thinks I come up with dumb ideas all the time. And so usually if I want to run something by her, she's not afraid to tell me that's the dumbest idea she's ever heard in her life. So find somebody like that, and really, because I'm going to tell you, you don't think you're going into it blindly, but I know for me that I'm an impulsive person, and impulse is not good or bad. It's what you do with it. And so, but just like with the good, I can have impulse that drives me into areas because I become convinced in my own mind that, oh, this is a sure thing, it's going to kill. And then it doesn't. Yeah. And it's usually because I didn't do my homework. I didn't put the idea up for scrutiny, or I didn't want to hear what people were saying about it. And so I just really encourage you to get to that spot to where your ears are open and you really listen to what people around you are saying.
You know, it's amazing you bring this up and you went that direction, because Dr. Josh and I were on last Thursday on the Curry and Claypool show, and then we were on Fox 6, and we just kind of followed over, and we were talking about your show. And I said, you know, we do this wonderful show with Michael Coleman every week called Mission Minded, and we have talked about, you know, when you have an idea, the people around you, there's a lot of yes people around you, and they're your friends and family, and they do love your ideas, but you do need to have that scrutinization. You need to have somebody that is willing to be upfront with you, because even if you're like, tell me the truth now, and they're all going to look at you, particularly if it's a really wild and crazy idea, they may look at you and go, sure, that's a wonderful idea. And then, you know, and I use the example, you know, if you're sitting up outside Brian Denny's selling whatever it is every Saturday at football games, and you end up selling 100 to 150, and you're making a little money doing this stuff, and then someone says, you know, you should sell these every single day of the week. If they're buying them here outside the stadium, I mean, set up a brick and mortar, you know, on the strip, and you'll sell the bejeebers out of these things, and next thing you know, your head starts spinning, and you may not be. There's two different ways too. In this particular case, in Trey's case, he has no background in this business idea. If you're a widget maker and you're going, okay, I want to sell widgets on the street corner, and you can be invested in it, and you have your fingers in that pie per se, then it's a little bit of a different spin than if you have no idea how to make an existing product better. And Michael, you know this as well, and we've learned this from doing this show. Most of the great ideas out there are already existing ideas that were ripped off by someone else, and they took them because they could do them better. I mean, restaurants are known for that. The little things they do that are better. I went to a Mexican restaurant down the street, and there's so many Mexican restaurants in this town. It's crazy. I got 4 of them within a mile of each other. And right. So I said we're gonna try something different, and they did things just a little different, and it was really, really good. The food was as good as it's been anywhere else. But so yeah, and so Josh, you know, Josh is a psychologist, and he pretty much nailed it. He said it's so important to get in front of someone that you know doesn't have any idea of how to do it themselves. So you don't have to worry about them stealing your idea. You trust them, and that they're willing to just be straight up forward with you and say, listen, okay, have you thought in depth from a business standpoint, from a business plan standpoint, how this thing, and I've used this analogy a million times. It's the charity golf tournament. It's the charity golf tournament. We're going to have 50 guys pay $50 a piece. We're going to make $2,500 and we're going to give it to a charity. And then next thing you know, the golf course wants a little bit. Next thing you know, someone's got, a hole in one, with a hole. And then
things you don't think about.
Someone says, what about sponsorships at each hole? You need to have sponsorships at each hole. Then you're like, everyone wants a swag bag. So you need to get people involved that want to give away, because people aren't going to show up at a golf tournament unless they get a free pair of shoes. I mean, it goes on. Next thing you know, you create this monster, and there's so much overhead, you make no money, and you're like, well, at least we learn, and next year we'll know what we're doing. Well, it doesn't get any easier. It really doesn't.
That's right. But I will say this too. When you're picking out somebody, I try to. There are people that I know that are just negative Nellies, that are not. They are risk averse, and so you don't want to go to somebody who doesn't have a business mind, because if you're risk averse, then any risk they will shut down. I had a board chair one time, and any idea I brought to them, how they would reply would be, "Oh, well, here's all the things that could go wrong." And so you don't want somebody to throw cold water on the idea, because they themselves are not entrepreneurial in their thought process and in their makeup. So you want to get somebody who is open to the idea, but can offer you real scrutiny and things to think about. So finding that person and that right balance is really important.
Do you have any idea, and this is Michael Coleman, Mission Minded, a great show. We play it at least 5 times a week here on TKR. You can hear it wherever you get your podcast, at Tony Kurre Radio. Info at TonyCurreRadio.net, and Spotify is one of our biggest. Do you know, you mentioned talking to someone and perhaps copywriting and stuff like that. The first thing I thought of when I saw this email was a lawyer. And I know people don't want to deal with lawyers, but I do think there are lawyers out there that can copyright and patent things for you. At least put it on paper to say this was this individual's idea. So if in fact you do approach somebody and they run with it, then it's gonna blow up, and you're gonna at least get your share. Is that safe to say? Is that safe to do?
Yeah, but there's a lot of things online you can do now. Like, I've done several legal things through LegalZoom that have really simplified it, and I think probably something like that. But just like you said with the Mexican restaurant, the way people tend to get around it can be very difficult sometimes, because all you have to really do is change one or two key aspects, so people can steal your idea, and you do it and make it blue, and you said, "Oh, no, my idea is red because of this," and so they're able to steal it because they're not stealing your exact idea.
Yeah,
and so it can be very difficult, but nevertheless, I think it's a risk that you have to take. The odds of somebody stealing it is much less than the odds of you going at it alone and it blowing up in your face.
There you go. He is Michael Coleman. Greatly appreciate his time. We're very grateful to have him on every single week here on TKR and wherever you get your podcast. All right. So you sent me this. You sent me some ideas. Strategic ways nonprofits can leverage data to optimize operations. Let's just take that statement right there first and tell me where you saw this, how it got into your head. And I know you don't look at an idea and throw it to me and not have an idea where you want to go with it.
Yeah, so this was written. It was in Forbes magazine, and I told you, I love to read articles. It gets me thinking about something, and I relate it internally, and then I'm like, this can be something to help people. And you are 100% correct. Talking about data could not be more dry, but it's one of those things that is just so critical in the nonprofit world. Because what you have to understand in the nonprofit world is you are filling a gap, a societal need that government can't fill. And that's kind of how I look at the nonprofit world. The nonprofit world is good things happening to, when I say nonprofit, I'll say 501c3s, the charitable organizations, are people who have set up to meet a societal need that's not being met. And so what you typically don't have money to waste. You typically don't have any resources to waste, whether it's personnel or whatever. And so you should be constantly thinking, how can I do more with less? In other words, how do I just squeeze more juice out of every process that I have and everything that I'm doing to maximize where I am? And so data is the key to that. And I'm not talking about, most of our nonprofits I'm not talking about the Red Cross or Feeding America. kind of data across. Most of us are small nonprofits working in our community, but we really have to pay attention to the data and make sure that we understand how to interpret that data. So let me just give you a quick example. So one time we were pouring a lot of money into social media, and you and I were having this conversation about your very own business about how do you use social media to expand? A lot of people say, hey, you got to be digital. You got to get the word out there. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm on board. I get it. So you start putting it out there, and then you go, okay, how do I know if I'm successful? And so Facebook, when you advertise through Facebook, it has a dashboard, and it'll give you all this data and all these statistics. And so I go in there and I go, okay, for this ad, it tells me that for every click I got on this particular ad, it cost me 50 cents.
Yep.
All right. So that's the raw data. And then I go, okay, is that good or is that bad? Mm-hmm. If you don't know what the industry standard is. So I had somebody that helped me with that kind of understood what all that was about. And sometimes I'd say, this ad cost me 50 cents. And he goes, well, the industry standard is that should be costing you 20 cents per click. So I'm like, well, that 50, I'm paying too much. I'm paying twice as much as other people are for the same kind. Or the other areas, he would come out and go, well, that's normally $1 and you're only paying 50 cents. And I'm like, hey, I'm killing it with that. So what it would do is I would take the money that I was putting in the ads that wasn't working.
Yes.
Wasn't, and I was shifting it to what was working. Exactly. So spending the same amount of money, but just squeezing more juice because I'm looking at the data that's telling me here's what people are responding to and here's what they're not.
And so yeah, and I've done the exact same thing. I've done the same thing. I was told it was roughly like 21, 22 cents a download, which was going to be successful. And so you try to target that number, and they talk about pouring gas on fire holes is what they say. Okay. And really, I mean, like a lot of different businesses, you want to know who your customer is before you start. And I did this in classic rock radio. They're like, whenever you open your mouth, you're talking to one person, not to a group. You're always talking to one person. So make sure you say, hi, I'm Tony Kurre. You don't ever say, this is Tony Kurre, because I wouldn't walk up to you and shake your hand and go, this is Tony Kurre. And you go, what? You say, I'm Tony Kurre. That's number one. And number two, who are you talking to? And so we would sit down and go, okay, who do you think our listener is? And we'd say, divorced guy, 37, 2 kids, likes to bowl, drinks Bud Light, blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, they'd come with us at the data, and we were always off a little bit, not as much as we thought. And then that's where you spend your money. You go after those people. But there was always, and things change too. There was always some different demographics, some different genres, some different honey holes. Where your algorithmic analytics were working very, very well, that were kind of surprising, and you're kind of like, well, wait a minute, why is this? And it happened to me a couple of weeks ago. All of a sudden, I had like 3,000 people in Sweden listening, and I don't know where they came from. I mean, I had a couple of hundred, and all of a sudden it just went through the roof. And so, my guy's like, listen, next time you do this show, you need to make sure you welcome the Swedes. Make sure, and it went up. So I get that. So, Facebook is really interesting in that. And if you've done, and there's a lot of businesses run just out of Facebook, man. People don't even have websites. They just go to my Facebook page. And I'm not saying it's not a bad idea, because there's a lot of successful business being run out of just social media platforms. But when you do that, you got to realize that Facebook's going to be getting something out of it too. And what I mean by that is they get as much out of your algorithmic analytics as the algorithmic analytics they're giving you. So they're using your business for their algorithm so they can take on the next new business that comes in and wants to spend more with Facebook, which I think is really, really interesting. So, all right. So what you said sounds like a great idea. That sounds wonderful. And that's assuming, it's assuming that your business has listenership, or it has customers or potential customers that are interested in what, and every business is different. Say you're not getting any feedback at all based on what you're doing. What does that tell you about your business from a social media standpoint? And how far do you go with it? I mean, Facebook is great because you can do it for $10 or $15. You know, you don't have to spend
Right,
thousands of dollars to
right.
get it done, but you're also not getting the reach in a particular area. So what do you do then?
Yeah, so I mean, you look at that's why you have to go through and look at several different bits of data. So social media is one pot of data that you look at that will tell you one part of the story. I don't want to build, especially in the nonprofit world, you know, you need a development department because donors are the lifeblood of any nonprofit. And so I don't want to put all my resources into the data analysis of, first of all, it's very technical. And a lot of people are like, man, I just don't even have the brain width to be able to take all that in. And so, but there's lots of things you can do like with donors. So let me give you an example. So you can look out and say, okay, we have 1,000 donors. I'll just make it simple. We have 1,000 donors and they all gave differing amounts. And so people just look at that and go, oh, we need to get more donors. Well, that's true. But if you look at the data and you learn more about your donors, what you find is that there's actually more you can squeeze from those donors, not by asking them for more, but just by directing the message. So let me give you an example. So historically, it shows that donors who give over $100 a month, so let's just say, or over $100 gift, maybe, I don't want to say affluent, but typically they're moved more by a story. Whereas donors who give less typically are moved by calls to action. Mm-hmm. So if I said, and of course there's going to be bleed over on both sides, but if I said, oh man, we just had a truck crash and now I've got to replace this food truck to be able to go out to this county and we've got X amount of days. I mean, you'll get tons of 20 and 25. It's just a call to action. Hey, we got to fix this right away. I remember we had that one time when we had one of our floors caved into our dorms and put that out. And we got tons of, $50 and $75 gifts. But when you tell a story, it's more than a call to action that takes hold of someone's heart and takes hold of their perspective. And they're like, wow, this organization is not just doing X, Y, and Z. They're actually changing lives, and I want to be a part of that. And they tend to invest more. So it depends on lots of times who I'm talking to. Lots of times when I do my messaging, I try to separate my donors from the $5 to $100 and send out a message that's more tailored for a call to action. And then I take the higher end donors and I try to talk about a story and move them in a different way. We also do it differently based on, we have lots of donors. And this is every nonprofit, is you're going to have most of your donors are going to be of higher age because they have more disposable income. They're not raising kids. Their life's kind of settled. They've got their investments, and they donate to those areas that they're most passionate about. And we still have lots of people that send us checks every month. And so when we reach out to them, we just reach out to them understanding this is not the tech folks right here. They like the plain, easy, make it easy for them. But I wouldn't write the same message to the 70-year-olds that I would write to the 30-year-olds. So I can get more of a following. But if I'm tailoring my message, now that's a little bit more work, and it's dividing up my donors and messages. And I know it's just easier if you just do one thing out to everybody. But if you just look at things like age and giving capacity and all that, and you just, as you learn, you further dissect the data, and you can understand what's best for each group. And so you're not changing your messaging in terms of how much you're asking, but you're simply paying attention to the data. And the data historically shows that this group has more of a disposable income. So I might ask them one thing. And then this group here, I might do a campaign. They don't have much, the 20s and 30s, the Gen Zs and the millennials. They don't have as much disposable income. So if I wanted them to start giving, I might just start asking hey, would you be a $10 a month donor? Well, I wouldn't ask that of somebody that had, that was 70 years old and had way more disposable income, I'd ask them to be $100 a month donor.
Yeah.
And so go ahead. So that's why it's just so important to pay attention to your data and dig into it, because it can just tell you so much.
Montgomery Area Food Bank, mafb.org is the website. You can help at any time. And one of the reasons we love doing this show, not only because it's a wonderful organization that Michael's been part of, and certainly with the Jimmy Hill Mission he was previously with, my heart goes there too. So let me ask you this, and I was going to ask you the question, it was very general, but I was going to ask you the question, was it easier when we didn't have social media and we didn't have internet? Where we just had to beat the streets. Everything was green, right? Everything was organic. It was just, we had to shake hands in order to get our business. And the only way to franchise out was you had to go drive to the next city and say, listen, I've got a chicken restaurant in Birmingham. I'm trying to franchise out here in Nashville. And you had to walk the streets to get it done. I've seen enough of the men who made America on History channels to see how these things work. And now all of a sudden you don't have to be anywhere. You can just send things out to wherever you want, but you still have to make sure they see it wherever you. And so you have to look through search engines. Are people looking for fried chicken restaurants in Nashville or what? Blah 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 blah. When you're talking about a non-for-profit, which let's be honest, is not considered a sexy business. It's not. And for the most part, I'm not going to be going to mafb.org every day because I don't know how many new updates are going to be. And I can listen to your stories and I can listen to testimonials. I could even listen to Mission Minded 5 or 6 days a week. We only do it once a week. And so how do you go about keeping your business fresh, exciting? I think by you doing this show was a wonderful idea, and I'm not just saying that because it's on my radio station, but it was something different. You were thinking outside the box, and that's why we certainly like to tangent off and give different ideas too. It's not just about non-for-profits, but it's about business in general. But where have you did that with? And I'll use an example. You did it with the Jimmy Hill Mission with your license plates. I thought it was a brilliant idea. When you told me the idea, I was like, that's brilliant. Because it's Jimmy Hill Mission. How many times has someone go to the Jimmy Hill Mission website and you had a situation where how can we get out there in front of eyeballs? And next thing you know, it's on the back of every car in town. Where'd your mind thinking go there to make your business more, I can think of another word, but just sexy in general? Yeah.
So I'm telling you, you have to, sorry, I'm losing my voice.
It's okay.
You have to pay attention to who your audience is. So I put myself in the place of the audience, and I'm like, you're right. Food banking in and of itself is not sexy. We might come out with a heartwarming story, and we promote that. But I think what's really important is that there's also, you have to understand that everybody doesn't want to have their heart pricked. Mm-hmm. There's a place for that, but I don't want to do a heartwarming story every day. Sometimes we just need to know what the facts are. Hey, we can get 5 meals for $1 through our system. So that's one stuff. That's just kind of a fact. And so we'll put that out there, and that's informative. And people understand, oh, I see, instead of me going out and buying food, maybe I could just donate the dollars, and then through their system, they can collect more. And so that appeals to some. It's not going to appeal to all. And then you want to have some impact stories. And man, this person's life or this community's been affected by what we're doing. And we want to share that to show that we do care about our community members, and we are working hard to do that. And then, so you want to mix it up. You want it to be variety, because there's not going to be one area that always appeals. So you want to show good balance. You want to make sure that you're upbeat. You don't want to show a woe is me. And I'll even throw this out there as well. You were asking, how do people get that out over social media? I will tell you that it's for good business people and people who believe in their product and excel at selling their product. Facebook and things like that are great, but it can be the downfall if you're not, because for instance, like right now, if you're right, you technically don't have to have a website, but it in our society today, if I'm dealing with somebody like a contractor or something like that, and I'd say, well, what's your website? Oh, I don't have a website. Well, then that automatically classifies them as, somebody less than a professional who is taking that serious and putting that out there. And I mean, it can be sometimes, it can send a message, or your website is very plain. I mean, our website, when I got here, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And it was not informative. It was actually too much on there. It was very busy. And so I thought to myself, a website should be very easy to navigate. You don't want to overwhelm with information. You want to give easy contact, easy to navigate, easy to find your donate button. And so something about, your website speaks to who you are. It speaks to what you provide and what your priorities are and all of that. And so, but if I'm putting something out there on social media and then you see people talking about it and they know what quality is, and then people want to be associated with good nonprofits. Mm-hmm. I mean, they want to know if they give $1, that dollar is going to be used in a way that they can trust.
There you go.
And if they look and everything about you is substandard, from your advertising to your social media posts, all that, it doesn't instill confidence. So everything matters when it comes to how the public views you and wants to get involved in what you're doing.
Michael, we got to fly, man. Great show again this week. Let's do it again next week. Again, any of your questions, emails, we'll read them. info@TonyCurryRadio.net. info@TonyCurryRadio.net. That's Curry with a K, Kurre. We're available wherever you get your podcast, any major industry, and of course, certainly right here on Tony Curry Radio. Michael, God bless, man. Have yourself a wonderful week. We'll talk to you next week.
You as well, brother.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.